Welcome to Shaped by Faith with your host, Theresa Rowe. To find out more about Shaped by Faith and Theresa Rowe, please visit shapedbyfaith.com or visit the YouTube channel, Facebook, or Instagram. And now, here is Theresa Rowe.
Welcome to Shaped by Faith. I'm Theresa Rowe, and my guest today is Curtis and Pip Reid. Canadian-born founder Chris, inspired by his 25 years of experience as a Bible teacher within the body of Messiah, recognized the need for resources that help kids learn about the biblical faith in a historical, culturally, and biblically accurate way. And he wanted to share these resources with the world. So Curtis teamed up with his wife, Pip, and Bible Pathway Adventures was born. And what began in 2012 as a Bible storybook app grew into a series of illustrated Bible storybooks, videos, and discipleship curriculum for schools, home, and fellowships. So I want to welcome you both, Chris and Curtis. Welcome to Shaped by Faith.
Thanks, Theresa.
Hi, Theresa. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So tell us just a little bit about yourselves individually, where you're at, where you're from, your heart, whatever you want to share.
All right. Well, Pip and I met in New Zealand. I was originally born in Canada and raised in the Okanagan Valley, which sort of borders Washington State and Idaho. And so just up from there was where I came into the time domain and started my journey. And then when I was over in my executive career, I was in New Zealand, Australia, and that's where I eventually would meet my bride. And as a part of that, at the time, we sort of had a shared love for serving the Father and our King. And so it was a matter of, okay, well, what are we going to do with this? And so there was a lot of challenges going on. I just come out of some very serious fires in my life, which tend to open your eyes and ears when that happens. And so I was rethinking everything. And so as a part of that, the Father brought Pip and I together, and as a result of that, we started to discuss some things, and Pip had some really neat ideas and identified a need that was sitting there because we both had a love, for the Father and for our faith. And so as a part of that, she discovered a need. She came to me and said, I think there's some things out there we need to revisit. And we noticed, not to be critical, but there was just a lot of materials out there for children. And of course, one of the things that we're commanded scripturally is to raise our children in his ways. And a lot of this had been tended to be farmed out or taken away from the parents and the family nucleus. And so we started identifying a lot of needs. And of course, we both realized it was difficult enough to be parents these days, never mind, following instructions like that. So we decided instead of criticizing everyone, we'd try and help. So
great idea. Pip, tell us your background. We heard a little bit from Curtis, but tell us about yourself.
Sure. So my parents were English. They moved to New Zealand in 1970, and that's where my brother were born and raised. And like many New Zealanders, as soon as I left school, I traveled the world. So I ended up living in Asia and Europe and North America, and wasn't really interested in the faith, to be honest, even though I'd grown up, attending Sunday school. But in my mid-30s, I guess I came to the end of myself and thought what is the truth? And that led me to accepting Yeshua and started on my journey of faith. And probably about 5 years into that, I met Curtis. And together we started to look deeper at our faith and at the foundations of our faith. And like he said, we started to identify need for parents to teach their children, disciple their children, especially in the home, and looking deeper into the biblical faith and seeing what was actually historically, culturally, biblically accurate. And that's really where Bible Pathway Adventures was born.
That's beautiful. So, Pip, what is your part with Bible Adventures? What do you do behind the scenes?
Well, I write the curriculum. So prior to starting Bible Pathway Adventures, I worked for New Zealand's largest educational publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the Father put me there, obviously, to learn the publishing world. And so really coming out of that, I combined my love for the Word and my love for giving children a good start in life to start Bible Pathway Adventures. And so I started writing Bible stories. And I loved, as I wrote them, I loved putting little fun facts, to give children context to what they were reading. And really that developed into an app initially. And then I started creating fun quizzes and puzzles for children to make Bible learning more fun. And that led into creating Bible curriculum. And that's my main focus today, is just running Bible curriculum and getting the word out about Bible Pathway Adventures and working with illustrators and things like that.
You're both very talented. I can see why God placed you together for his kingdom purposes. How have you seen your ministry impact families and communities around the world?
Wow, what a great question. Overwhelmingly so. One of the things in this journey, it's just so humbling to get the testimonies. We've had families that, just over the years, who didn't even know, because we do other parts of ministry in relationship to the teaching and a whole discipleship program for men and women and things. They didn't know that we actually had founded and run Bible Pathway Adventures. And so they had raised their children for years and years and years, and they've suddenly discovered that's you guys. But they're humbling, and the impact, it's immeasurable. You don't even know how to receive sometimes some of the feedback that comes, because sometimes parents find themselves single or widowed or whatever it might be, or no faith background, or they weren't raised in the Word themselves, and so they don't know where to start. What do we do? And so we decided to come in and go, you know what, we're going to help. And so that's really what happened. But the tests, honestly, Theresa, they're so numerous that, we're just humbled, on a weekly basis by the Father of what comes through. And now we're seeing those children that were raised, and the parents were able to use the materials and to be a part, and all of it is to steer them to give a love for the Word. So we're finding as they get older and they're coming into their teens, instead of the Bible is some thing that sits to the side, and it's some boring thing that they experienced as a child, they're now starting to get into the Word. And so it's been a great springboard and stepping stone to just introduce, to let them understand the richness of their faith. And then suddenly, some of the testimonies of where some of the young children now are just literally just reading the Word and going through it for themselves now, and they're 13, 14, 15, and they've had this foundation. So it's neat. It's really neat.
Discipleship in the home is so important. My husband and I were a blended family. We're going on 29 years of marriage. So we have 7 children blended together. We have 12 grandchildren. And at the time, we were in church with them. We took them to Sunday school. We let them go on youth retreats and stuff like that. But some of them grabbed onto the Word, and some of them readily did not. And, we tried our best as parents, but to have the resources that both of you have put together would have been totally amazing, but it's all good. It's all good. Now we can teach our grandchildren. I think it's so important, if you're a grandparent or a caregiver, to also, you have that responsibility to train up that child in the ways of the Lord. So discipleship in the family is important. So let's say a parent or a grandparent, they don't know the first thing about, how do I do this? Like you had given testimony, how do you do this? How do you disciple the child? Where would they start with your resources?
Well, firstly, when we get those type of inquiries, we always say children love stories.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's good to start at the beginning with the creation. And so what we've done actually in the last 2 years is create a curriculum that's specially designed for parents to start from the beginning. And so we take them through, with this curriculum, we take them through the first 5 books of the Bible in 1 year, 52 stories with ready-to-use lessons and curriculum and activities to give children that solid foundation. And so we called that curriculum Torah Time Traveler.
Okay.
And we created it for 2 age groups. I'll just show you, Theresa. We created it for 4 to 7 years old
Oh, those are
and
nice.
for 8 to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
And really the idea is that children can learn the first 5 books of the Bible in 1 year, 52 weeks. And that's
Wow.
all done for you. So you don't need to have any faith background to start, because the lessons are ready to use. And then the materials, the activities are just there. And if you can print them out at home or give each child a book. And that was developed out of that very question, where do I start?
I loved the books that you showed, Pip. And I know for those listening audience, you'll have to go to the podcast to see them. Beautifully done. And we can get into that, like the artwork and all that was, I mean, it really caught my attention. One of the questions I have, Curtis, is what challenges do families face today in raising children with a strong biblical foundation, and how can they overcome them?
Yeah. The challenge, especially in the modern world, I mean, there's time challenges and there's so many constraints that are affecting particularly young families, the financial pressures, everything that's going on. So that's a big challenge. It's just, how do I get time to even share the faith and to honor the faith and our instructions to do so with our children. So that's a big one. The other one, strangely enough, is where if I go to try and tackle and honor the scripture in this way, what's available. And what we discovered was, sadly, there's a lot of materials out there that would have, say, a Christian face, but weren't necessarily actually biblical in a lot of ways. And so this is a big challenge, because how do you discern that? How do you know? And so these are these things that face young parents. And so what we did was to set up something, historically, culturally, biblically accurate, but also fun and engaging, so that it was a way for the parents to do this and a way for the kids to really engage. And so the fun and engaging bit's a real challenge too. And so it was about trying to bring these 3 things together so that parents could overcome, the time constraints, the financial constraints, the biblically accurate constraints, but also allowing it to be fun for the family and to be able to do discipleship in the home. Theresa, the way I put it is that there's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a big fast food menu.
That's true.
And
Go
then
through the drive-through.
there's a bit of a healthier menu, and
Yes.
we've tried to as an analogy,
Yes. No,
we
I
can
like
eat
that.
fast food, get through it real quick, and take a bit of nutrients and stuff from it, but long term, not sure it's going to be good for the faith. Or we can really help parents to go, you know what, let's eat a good meal here, and so that's where we came from.
That's good. Not everything that has Christian stamped on it is Christian. And I think that's where we really need to go to the Lord in prayer and ask. And I do believe He gives us that discernment as we acknowledge Him in all of our ways. Even with fitness, if it says Christian fitness, and I've looked up and I'm like, oh gosh, that's not Christian fitness. That is, she's not very modestly. But you have to kind of discern, and like you said, and kind of do your own research as well. So how can parents, and you were talking about having fun. So when we had all of our children together, it's sort of like a circus. Our youngest were 4-year-old twins, and the oldest was a 16-year-old, and we had every age in between. But we would try and gather them together at night and do a Bible study, something that was fun. We would read the word and then ask them questions. And the older ones were like, oh, yeah. But the little ones really enjoyed it. So, if parents have all these varying ages in their homes, how can they make like a Bible study and a time together natural and enjoyable for their children?
Well, when we create resources, we create them for 2 age groups for that very reason. So households with multiple kids can both engage with the story. So we have a lot of resources for the younger children, the younger learners, like 4 to 7-year-olds. And then we go to the 8 to 12 with the same resource, but it's leveled up. So those children can also enjoy. And then a lot of our materials included in the lesson plans, we have kid-friendly Bible stories. So you can not only read from the Word, but you can also read a kid-friendly Bible story that's based on the Word. And so children often find that engaging as well. And so that's really, we've had a lot of good feedback, so a 4-year-old can enjoy the same Bible story as an 11-year-old because there are fun activities for them both to complete. And it doesn't matter that they're different ages.
The other thing too, Theresa, on that is that the challenges are in just the parents going, okay, we want to share the faith. And so there is an intentional thing where parents go, you know what, if it's after dinner, it could be, at some point during the weekend, but there needs to be an intention where they go, okay, we've got the support, we've got the materials, we've got the Word, we've got the, the materials to help engage in the Word. We know it's accurate. We know that it's not going to, be something where there's a disconnect, but there has to be that intention where the parent goes, okay, now that I've got the tool, now that I've got the car, I still have to make the decision to drive it. And so we recommend that, that the parents, to, whichever or together, just intentionally, whether that's, again, after dinner, whatever works for the family. It's hard these days to go, this is what you must do. Here's your silver bullet. But what you can do is say, here's the pattern of being intentional so that the kids learn and actually want this time as a family, as a nucleus in a family, gather, whether that's just mom or dad or both. And so eventually what happens is when that pattern takes hold, they want it. They're looking forward to it. And so do the parents. But there is an intentional decision that must be made. And we just recommend it's okay. It's not daunting. If it's a half an hour, whatever it is, is a half hour too much or an hour to give to an eternal perspective when you're raising a family? Is it really? And so this is the thing we just, and again, this is where we don't criticize the parents. We know how hard and challenging it is out there. Wow. So let's just help you get there, because it's a lifetime reward, in doing so, if we just do it.
That's so good. And it's about disciplining our bodies. And I've told my students, your body will crave whatever you give it, good, bad, or not so good. So if you feed it the Word, it's going to want more of the Word. And then you can also impart that to your children as you set, this is the time we're going to do this, and it may change, but, we're going to do this for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and we're going to spend time with the Lord, because we are called to place Him first, love God, love others, place Him first in our lives. And then everything else falls into that divine alignment. So I think it's also honoring God as we spend time and as we teach our children and grandchildren to do the same. I know you showed me some of the books. Are those your most popular resources? Do you have any other resources about family discipleship? I'm sure you have lots.
Well, we have a lot of what we call supplementary, where, for example, 100 Bible quizzes. So parents and fellowships really enjoy using books like that. They can just print out one quiz, and that accompanies a Bible story. So we do a lot of books which just contain supplementary materials. And then our new Torah Time Traveler series has actually proven quite popular since we released it last year. And that's just packed with stories and lesson plans. So, but we really, our resources span the Old and New Testament. So we do things like, parables of the Messiah, miracles of the Bible, Paul the Apostle. We've got a resource that takes children right through the life of Paul, with ready to use lessons and activities. So really, using our materials, they can cover the entire Bible.
One of the things, Tracy, we found is that because of the materials, the children can start to identify. So, like, let's take Paul, for example, the Apostle Paul. And what was his journeys? What was he called by the Father to actually do? And they start to identify with actually, this great man who was called to serve, and suddenly it's not this, mystical book that sits on a shelf or a mom and dad's, it actually is something that gains meaning. And so we found that one of the, he's now a part of our wider ministry and whatnot. And this man and his family, for years, we're using the BPA materials, and they were so grateful for the change they saw in the children that they just wanted to reach out and be a part of, what we were doing. And so, these are the sorts of things where discipleship as a whole is, these materials help in the discipleship process. We need his spirit, we need his word, we need his truth, and it all comes together. Discipleship is the interaction of all of this. So there's nothing we don't do that isn't, with its foundation, isn't discipleship. It's all discipleship and the very essence of it.
I know that your website mentions missionaries, and it's a key part of your ministry. So can you tell us more about how Bible Pathway Adventures supports global missions, or in any story you want to share?
Right. Well, with the missions, we think it's very important. There's many parts of the world that either can't get biblical materials, never mind accurate ones, or can't afford them. And so what we were doing was, those that get behind us that can't afford it and things like that, then we can contribute a portion of what we receive in relationship to the materials being bought or, being used. And then we take a portion of that and we get it out to those areas of the world that just can't get a hold of materials or can afford them. So for them, even just, in some areas that we serve into, just to have a coloring page is valued. We don't have a concept generally in our Western world here in North America of just how special some of these things are. We just take things for granted. So we get those out. And as a part of that, we've had very exciting things, whether it be from, work going on in India and in Asia, Africa, all these sorts of things, and really neat things too, like stuff that, and again, we can't go really into it today in detail, but things that have happened and transpired. One example would be Ethiopia, where a ministry that works with certain parts of Africa, and the Ethiopians, who have guarded a lot of the ancient biblical principles, wouldn't really accept materials from the West. They didn't see it as biblically accurate. They approached us in the end and said, you're one of the few sets of materials that the Ethiopians will actually look at and use for their children. And we were just stunned. And now this has a personal link back to my journey in years before this, where Ethiopia played a major part of me understanding the fulfillment of major biblical prophecies and the scientific evidence that relates to that. And there's DNA trails. Very interesting, all of it. But long story short, we've been able, as a result of that, to bring the gospel in the local language of Amharic, working with this other ministry. And here, Ethiopian given so much to me in my faith journey and things that I'd looked as a part of my studies and teachings and things like that, and how literal the ancient biblical prophecies were. And here we were able to give back the message, the gospel, the message of Messiah back to these people. And it just put the hairs up on it. Like, I could never have conceived what they had given to me in my faith journey. And now we were able to give back the message of the gospel and Messiah. And so, and now Ethiopia is receiving some of our materials, like Birth of the King and all these things that talk about your Messiah has come. And so it's humbling.
That is humbling and mind-blowing, and it's God. It's his work. Do you ever look back and years pass and you're at a place where God has brought you now and you're like, wow, Wow, God, look what
Every
you have
week.
done. I mean, he is using both of you, for his kingdom purposes and in Ethiopia. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Where can people purchase your resources, and where do you suggest them starting? I know you'd talked about that in the first two segments, just a little.
Well, people can go to our website, which is BiblePathwayAdventures.com, and you can buy a digital download resources, or you can also purchase paperback or spiral bound resources as well. And we also sell our resources on Amazon, and we take 10% of every sale and we put that towards our mission program. And if parents want to know where to begin, we always suggest at the beginning with our resources from the creation, Adam and Eve, and Cain and Abel, right through to Revelation. And we have guidance and resources on our website to help parents start out.
And as a part of the missions, Theresa, we set up what's called teacher packs and materials, even getting them things like printers, the materials, things like that, because it goes a long way in a lot of these areas, and some of the most incredible testimonies are really from that part of the missions field.
Yeah.
Another thing too, Theresa, I wanted to mention, because we're not denominational and hooked to any particular denomination or even movement, whether it be Messianic, Hebrew Roots, Judaism, whatever. What we're doing is we are just being biblical and followers of Messiah. So the materials are based on that. So we find that we get a lot of interaction from various parts of the faith. And because we're not trying to be or, change someone or do that, we're just saying, here's these materials, and no matter where you are in your journey, it will benefit, whatever it is you're doing. So again, that's another thing where we have an incredible spectrum in the body of Messiah on who we work with as a result.
I absolutely love that, because aren't we supposed to be biblically based? Isn't that our foundation? I won't get into denominations or anything like that, because anything man-made, I mean, we're going to mess it up, But when you're with the word, you can't really mess it up when you're teaching the biblical principles and you're teaching the Bible. I love that. Is there anything you both want to share before we have to close out the segment?
No, just thank you for having us on, and it's been a real honor to be a part of what you're doing, and we thank you for the opportunity to share, and we hope that it can bless some of your listeners.
Well, it absolutely will. Thank you both. And thank you for listening. I'm Theresa Rowe. Everyone have a blessed day. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Shaped by Faith with Theresa Rowe. Remember to visit shapebyfaith.com to find out more about workouts, the TV show, podcasts, blogs, Shaped by Faith products, and much more.